new women. Till that time, women are being always told to be domesticated. Women are restrained to come out of their houses. So, during this period, when the novels were introduced, the connectivity from the novels to women has become very straight connection, because as women are finding more leisure time, they started to read the novels and understand the characteristics of the society without going into the society. So now they were able to understand what is modernization because of the books written on modernization, what are the problems that are being faced because of the modernization attempts, how it is adding on for the country, how it is bringing negative effects for the country. At the same time, how the rural societies are being misplaced or displaced and moved on towards the urbanization. What are the other effects that are happening? All these things women also are able to understand now. It's not only that women read only the men books or the novels. Women were also coming up to write their own views and points to encourage the women. So that's how we have the attempts made by Jane Austen in her book Pride and Prejudice States. Pride and Prejudice States, she clearly explains that women should always look for good marriage. According to her, a good marriage is a marriage with a man who is having fortune. A marriage in which he is a rich person and he can look after the family very well. So that's how she started to cultivate the attitude of fortune and marriages in the Austrian society. That's how she started to inculcate the habit of having good marriages and being trustworthy for the husbands who are fortunate enough. And then we don't only have this one, we also have Carlette Browne's book written called Jane Eyre. In the book Jane Eyre of 1847, she did not describe only about the good characteristics of the girl or well-behaved nature of the girl. Here, Jane was a very young girl at the age of 10 years, where Jane's aunt was always very much angry and rude to the girl, very small girl. So the small girl tends to react for this behavior of the aunt and comes out steadily and firmly and stands in front of the aunt and tells that many of the people say that you are a good woman, but you are not good woman. You are a bad woman and you are more deceitful. Deceitful meaning that you are very cruel to me, and I will never call you as an aunt until I am alive. These brave words from a small girl are being an inspiring words for many women who are facing atrocities in their domestic work. So all these things started to bring the women also motivation and understand the practical problems and the issues which are happening for them. That's how the situations are being changing. Now what about the books that are written for the young generation people? Let's find out. Now move on to the discussions on the novels for the young. So as we discussed the novels for the women, we saw the different characteristics which are brought in for the upgradation of the novels, like reaching to more number of women, and also to encourage women to be brave and strong according to their wills and deeds, and also to select for a good marriage. And all these things are been a part of the novels for women. But now moving on to the novels for young, the new type of men are being introduced in the novels for young people, because they want to shape the future of the younger generations to be brave, strong, and also have the features like be powerful, assertive, independent, and strategic. We can see the people who went and fought in the wars. We can see the people from the village backdrop areas moving on and occupying the colonies. So all these are being told as heroic stories to the younger generation children, so that they can feel proud and they also can turn themselves to be as world conquerors. That's how they started to inculcate in the books for the younger generation. The famous books are R.L. Stevenson's Treasure Island and Rudyard Kipling's Jungle Book. These two are greatest famous books of that period of time. The other famous books are also present. The other famous books are G.A. Henty's Historical Adventures. In the historical adventures, he would like to bring in the voices of the people and also encourage the people to come and participate in the colonial movement and occupy the people, go on trading, go on to the voyages and discover new places, contribute for the growth of the country and all these things. And these people are considered as English courage people. It is also termed as English courage. And later, moving on to the romantic books for the adolescent girls. Now we have covered the men, the women, the children, the younger generations, but the left out part is the adolescent girls. So for the adolescent girls, the romantic books are also written. The romantic books for the first time came into existence in US, written by Ramona Helen Jackson. Helen Hunt Jackson was a writer who brought in the romantic feelings outside for the adolescent girls. And also What Cathy Did. What Cathy Did. It was a book written by Sarah under a pen name called Susan. Sarah was her original name, and with a pen name she wrote Susan. She also brought a novel of romantic series known as What Cathy Did. And moving on to the other part of the novelism. Early novels have revealed for us like how is the colonialism, how is the modernization, what is the influence of industrialization, what are the problems that are being faced by the people because of colonialization, and all these things we have discussed in the wave journey of this modern novel system. But after the colonialism, till now we have discussed the issues which are happening during the colonial period, means when Britain occupied the other countries. As the colonialism started to come down, as the many countries started to become independent, then also books started to come in. Some of the books which are very famous are Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe. Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe book. This book is very famous because in this book he brought into light how the attitude of the people was there towards the slaves. It was actually a book which explains for us like Robinson Crusoe was a voyager who goes on voyage and find out he does a slave trade. So in his voyage of journey, he reaches to a particular island, where after reaching to that particular island, the ship starts to break it down. So he stays in that island, he gives shelter for some of the slaves who are facing some troubles. So he pulls them up, saves the life, and he doesn't even ask the name of a slave and names him as Friday with some blunt name, and he doesn't even treat him as human being at all. He is considerably treating him like a not at all as a human being and horrible conditions. But this was not considered as a new for the England novel readers, because it has been a common scenario by the English people. They never treat these people as normal human beings. They consider these people as barbarous, uncivilized, and they have to be treated like that only. It is being justified for a very long period of time that these people are completely barbarous and uncivilized. That's how the concept of white man's burden has been initiated in many of the colonial occupied countries. So that's how the people used to have the feeling. But it's only in Joseph Conrad's voice when it came outside as a book, it revealed the actual faces of colonialism, how the people are occupied, what are the real facts or the facets of colonialism. People are treated just like animals. They used to beat them, they used to hit them, they used to force them to work whatever they need to work. Actually, slaves are not uncivilized. They are brought up in a different manner and a different culture. Maybe the England people got industrialization more, they have attained the cloth material more, they have in a different set of pattern. When it comes to slaves, slaves are born and brought up with a different culture and a different system. So when these people come here, it's a new culture for them. When these people go there, it's a new culture for them. But in order to accept this equality, it has been a very long struggle made by the people all around the world to fight against the racial discrimination. So that also came into existence after the book written by Joseph Conrad. Now, what about the novels and its impact on India? We'll find out that. We shall now see about how the novels come to India, or how did they enter into Indian land. So novels are not new to India, especially when it comes to the prose stories. Prose stories are not at all new to India. We have seen many prose stories prior to the 17th century also. Some of the famous books are Bana Bhatta's Kadambari. Bana Bhatta's Kadambari has been very famous book available in the Indian market. And also from the Persian heroic stories. When we take the heroic novels which are written in Persia, Dastan has been one of the famous and most popular book available in India. And we also have Baba Padmanjan's Baba Padmanji's Yamuna Paryatan. In this Yamuna Paryatan, they discussed completely about the plight of the widows, how the widowhood life was, how are the problems going on, what are the situations that have been faced, and this was initially written in Bengal. And later, Lakshman Moreshwar's Mukti Mala was also another famous contribution when it comes to the novels coming to India. And when we discuss about the novels that are coming to India, the novels and the writers or the authors mainly focus to unite the culture and unite the Indians to fight or to have a great strong nationalism feeling, and also to make the Indians to understand how great they are in the aspects of culture and to be united and fight against the colonial master. So the main focus of attention was always to bring the nationalism spirit alive in all the people by their writings. Later on, the writers started to translate the books into local languages, vernacular languages, so that it can reach to wide range of people. So when it can reach to the wide range of people, then people can understand it on a very clear understanding. So this understanding is highly required of that particular time, because situations may be in trouble when there are problems where people cannot understand the language, then obviously some section of people will be stayed away from that particular segment. So they need to understand, means it should be in their own local languages. That's why the famous novels of English were also being translated into local languages. Now we shall check out in region wise what are the famous books that have been translated. Now let us move on our focus of attention of the novels towards South India. The famous novels in South India are first triggered in Malayalam and later in Telugu. So in Malayalam, the writer name called O. Chendu Menon has written a book called Henrietta Temple's Translation by Benjamin Disraeli. So Benjamin Disraeli's book was actually Henrietta Temple. This book has been translated by O. Chendu Menon. He wanted to make it come into Malayalam, so he translated it into Malayalam and explained the every phrase of English book same as it is and similar in the Malayalam language. The fantastic understanding of the writer here reveals that after some years of understanding, he could find that the people were not able to understand the descriptions which are made in the English book. Well, welcome, remove your hat. All these things were not able to be understood even though they were translated into Malayalam, wherein like in the Malayalam context, we don't find people wearing a hat, and why would a person ask a person to remove his hat? So these all factors have been some of the negative implications of translating the English version of book into a Telugu version or into a Malayalam version. So when the initial phase of translation came, it was understood that there is something which is not connecting the people. It is the culture, it is the way of dressing, it is the way of the behavior, it is the way of the welcome expressed. All these things started to affect the translation process. Then he gave up the idea of translations and he directly wrote in the Malayalam language as it was written in the English, but converting them into the Indian context, into the Malayalam backdrop, and then he wrote a book called Indulekha. Indulekha was the first book written in Malayalam in 1889. This is how the novels started to come into the local languages by the first starting in Malayalam, that is Indulekha. Later on, we have Andhra Pradesh. The case of Andhra Pradesh was also not so different. The case of Andhra Pradesh was also very similar to that of Malayalam. Here in AP we have Kandukuri Veerasalingam. The Kandukuri Veerasalingam also initially translated the book written by Oliver Goldsmith's Vicar of Wakefield. Oliver Goldsmith's Vicar of Wakefield. After he translated the book, he understood the story. He was able to enlighten the people by bringing the issues of what are the problems, what would be the issues, how to get the solutions for this one, and all these things. But in the course of time, he also learned that people would not be able to get connected to the standard of living of the English people, the version of style of the English people, or the situations which may be familiar for those people there but may not be familiar for the people in India. For example, when we discussed about the writing of the books on the cruelty of looking the people as slaves, especially the African people. But it was not a new aspect for the English people. It has been a habituated habit for all the people in English. In the same way, when it comes to other communities, slavery has been a very difficult and problematic situation for all the people. We start to question their attitude of inhuman nature. In the similar manner, the English versions may be different and the required local needs may be different. That he understood very clearly, and he wrote a direct book in Telugu, giving up the view of translation of the books, and he wrote a book called Rajashekara Charitam in 1878. That's how he decided to get the book into languages or novels into the local parts. Later, after Malayalam and Telugu, we have many books coming into Hindi and Bengali. Now, we shall see the famous books in Hindi. In Hindi, the first book was encouraged by Bharatendra Harishchandra. Bharatendra Harishchandra was the first famous writer who influenced all his friends in the circles of writing and encouraging them to write into the books. Most of the time, he has always preferred to translate the books from English or from Bengali. But later, Srinivas Das of Delhi was the first man to write the book called Pariksha Guru, the master of the examinations. Through this examination or through this book, Pariksha Guru, Srinivas Das actually want to bring an intention of what are the good characteristic features of a person. So he was actually bringing in the comparison study, and it is like a guideline book for all the young and youth to tell what are the good qualities, what are the bad qualities. He encouraged the things like how a young person who was rich, who gets into bad company and faces lot of problems. After he faces lot of problems, he, in this story, he would like to enlighten the person, saying that if you are firm in your attitudes and values, that would save you from any kind of destruction or a disorder. That's how the situations have to be changed, and he also was encouraging the younger people to preserve their traditional cultural values without compromising on them. That's how he started to initiate the process on a very larger scale. But as it has been a moral guideline book rather than a story book, it could not get the support of the larger number of people, because people started to consider this one as a moral guideline book and not as a novel. But later, it was Devaki Nandana Khatri. Devaki Nandana Khatri wrote the book called Chandrakanta. The Chandrakanta book also very famous, and this book also was driving the attention of the people towards this side. But it is only after the establishment of the writer Premchand, the Hindi language has seen the excel of novels coming in and flowing in Hindi language. Actually, Premchand used to write in two languages, that is in Urdu and in Hindi. Initially, he used to write all the books in Urdu, and later he used to convert them into Hindi. The story writing books are known as Kissa Goi. The story writing books are famously called Kissa Goi. According to Premchand, he wrote one of the famous book called Seva Sadan. In 1916, this book was released. In this book, Seva Sadan, Premchand detailedly describes what is a lifestyle of a woman, how the women are facing lot of problems, what about the dowry system, what about the child marriage system, what about the problems that are faced in the domestic violence. All these things are being explained in detail, and he also added that only 1% of the privileged and the most wealthy rich people can accommodate a girl education. That's how he brought the conclusion under the colonial rule, and he also added that the colonial rulers also could not do much great contribution in bringing girls from home to school. As we have seen the various books in the language of Hindi, Devaki Nandan's Chandrakanta. Devaki Nandan's Chandrakanta has been a very good book for the audience, especially for the people, those who have the pleasure of reading. The people, those who have the pleasure of reading, started to consider this one as a religious book for them. It is giving a guidelines for them, and it also developed the Nagari script on a very larger scale, and it has got the enormous popularity of the book, and it has been a remarkable book in the Hindi literature. In the same way, in Bengal also we have some significant contributions made by the people. The significant contributions are made in Bengal. Bengal books are again divided into two parts or two worlds. One is the past and the love stories. The second one is the domestic life of the people. The past books always revealed for us the situations which happened prior to the colonial period or the worst problems what they have faced. And when it comes to the domestic life, in the domestic life books, the books always divided are again into some books discussed about the social problems, while the other books were discussing about the relationship between men and women, especially the romantic relationship between men and women. As the time passed on, the rich merchants started to have some commercial activity for the people like Kabir Larai. The Kabir Larai has been a place where the dances have been organized, the meetings have been conducted, where people are being gathered on a very larger scale in order to get them understand and get them in touch for the people to understand what's happening in the city. But on contrary to this, Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, the household host writer, has been organizing Jatra. Jatra is a place where all the family members used to meet, and some of his close friends used to come and sit in his room and discuss about the readings and about the issues and about the developments in regarding to the literature process happening in India. Whatever, finally, Durgesh Nandini, the book which was written by Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, became the most famous book and the most popular book. In this, Bankim Chandra Chatterjee described the way the life goes on, the way the people react, the issues, how the normal simple language has to be treated. Prior to this, people used to write in Bengali also the Mayeli language. The Mayeli language, and most of the times Bengali books are always written in association with the urban culture. So Bengalis are always far ahead in thinking. So they used to have the women language spoken with the Mayeli language or the urban associated culture. But later they understood that Bankim Chandra Chatterjee's book popularized and became very famous and made the people to understand that even in simple language also people can understand. And Bankim Chandra translated the book into a normal simple Bengali language and added some more words from Sanskrit and the other languages instead of using Urdu or Mayeli language. And after this, the place was taken over by Sharat Chandra Chattopadhyay, who has been very famous from the later part of the 18th century, and he has got a significant place not only in Bengal but also in the entire India for his writings. So Bankim Chandra Chatterjee and Sharat Chandra Chatterjee are also been a significant contributors for the growth of novels in the field of Bengal language and also attaining national importance for their writings. So that's how the novels have been developed in India in regards to from north to south. We have seen the developments in Malayalam, we have seen the developments in Andhra. Both the cases are very similar because both initially thought of translating the old existing English books, but later they realized that if we translate the English books, that may be irrelevant to the situations of the Malayalis as well as for the Telugu people. So later they gave up the idea of translation and they started to translate them instead of translations. They started to write straight books in Telugu as well as in Malayalam. But when it comes to Hindi has taken a lot of time until and unless Premchand's books were being released, then only we got a wide and huge market for the Hindi books. Yes, Durgadesh books or Kanta books or Chandrakanta was also very famous book, but till that time the market was very much restricted. But once the Premchand Seva Sadan book has been released, it created a great impact on the Indian culture and also an understanding of what are the women problems that are being faced, written by Premchand. Now moving on to the conclusion on the Bengal books, we have books written by Bankim Chandra Chatterjee and Sharat Chandra Chatterjee, bringing on the real face of the people and also bringing the simple language which can be well connected to the people and also can be understood very easily to all the people on the backdrop of India, written by their own handwriting skills. When I meant about the handwriting skills, I am trying to convey the meaning that they were not translated, they were being written by their own ideologies. That's what I meant by using the word handwritings. So here these two great writers became very famous not only in Bengal but also in the entire India because of their extraordinary skills in writing the novels. That is the growth of novelism in India.